Hey everyone! First off, I wanted to say thank you all so much for your comments and feedback on the previous Commander Keen video, and I hope you'll enjoy this next one as well. So now that we've delved into the original 3 episodes, also known as the Invasion of the Vorticons trilogy, we're going to touch on the next entry that wasn't as well known or widely circulated. I'm going to talk about just why that is, and then give my actual thoughts on the game itself. So, let's hop back into it. How does Commander Keen and Keen Dreams hold up today? Before the next series of Commander Keen episodes titled Commander Keen in Goodbye Galaxy, as well as Commander Keen and Aliens Ate My Babysitter, were released, another much more obscure game was put out prior to that. Unlike the other episodes, it wasn't given an official number, causing many to call it Episode 3.5, or the Lost Episode, the term coined by marketing, following the later success of Goodbye Galaxy. The story behind this odd entry in the series is an interesting one, but I'll try to keep it brief. The makers of the original trilogy of games, Tom Hall, John Romero, John Carmack, and Adrian Carmack, made it no secret that they had every intention of starting their own gaming company and separating from soft disk publishing. The problem was that they all still had contracts with them. To settle the issue, SoftDisk agreed to let them out of their contracts on the condition that their new company would still provide SoftDisk with a new game every 2 months for their Gamer's Edge disc magazine, up until the end of 1991. Whew! Could you imagine making a new game in that short of a time frame every couple of months, and trying to run an independent company simultaneously? Whew, I'm getting stressed just thinking about it. Despite this rocky setup, id Software was formed, and they weren't going to let up. Eventually realizing they needed to return to Commander Keen, the crew decided to take this as an opportunity to test out some new features that they had been working on for future games. These included concepts like parallax scrolling, an alternative to the adaptive tile refresh setup that would allow the backgrounds to move with the player at a slower pace than the foreground, giving off a much smoother and more immersive gameplay landscape. The game also featured a huge update to the art style, which was far more colorful and lively than any previous title in the Keen series, as well as added sound card support. On to the game itself. Commander Keen in Keen Dreams stars everyone's favorite boy genius, Billy Blaze. After defeating the Grand Intellect and returning home from his mission, Billy gets into an argument with his mother over having to eat his vegetables. Later, he's sent to bed and falls asleep. When he wakes up, his bed is on top of a hill, like something out of Little Nemo. A bunch of potato men wearing helmets tell Billy that their king, Boobus Tuber, you can't make this stuff up, brought him to this world using what's called a dream machine. They intend to make Billy into a slave before he puts on his iconic Green Bay Packers-like helmet and fires his ray gun to take out the troops. It works, but the ray gun is out of charge, which is the game's explanation for why you can't use it in this entry. A random child that was imprisoned by the potato people, who are apparently called Tater Troopers, by the way, which is wonderful, begs Billy to save them all from King Boobus Tuber. So Billy now has to go through various produce-themed stages involving everything from headbanging broccoli to literal French fries, complete with beret. This is the kind of zany plot and setting that only a 90s cartoon could bring you, and I got a real kick out of it. Throughout each of the stages, you also have to look for Boobus bombs that will aid you in taking out the king. Once you collect at least 12 of them, the pathway will open up and you get the chance to fight him. On top of the graphical changes, the gameplay also feels quite different from the other entries. For one thing, as stated before, you cannot use your ray gun in this episode at all, nor can you use the iconic pogo stick. Outside of your regular jumps, all you can do is climb up and slide down poles and throw flower power pellets at enemies to temporarily turn them into flowers. This gives you time to run past them and keep moving. Why the change in equipment? Well, there's a mix of reasons, most of which were talked about in the book Masters of Doom by David Kushner. Tom Hall had gotten some negative feedback of the previous Keen game due to the violence, as Billy was essentially leaving a trail of corpses around after shooting enemies with his ray gun. You can imagine how well 90s parents took that. The flower power attack was meant to be a more non-violent way around the idea. As for the absence of the pogo stick, Hall stated in an interview with Episodic Content that Keen Dreams was in his nightmare, so he would feel less empowered and more in danger. These definitely had a large impact on the feel of the game, as it was drastically different from what we were already used to. As I said before, after collecting the 12 or more bombs from the various levels, you are free to go to the final stage, and the fight with King Boobus Tuber. He basically chases you around the small stage while you try to land the 12 bombs on him and finish him off. After this, we get a box of text with the ending, where Keen proudly tells his mom that he's not afraid of eating any vegetables, but also cracks a joke about staying away from french fries for a while. I have to admit that part got a genuine laugh out of me. You may also know that many fans who have played this consider it to be a rather disappointing entry in the series, and I'll address that shortly. But first I'd like to state the things I do like about this episode. For one thing, the new art style and graphics are a wonderful step up from the previous games. Everything is more rich and highly detailed, with environments that flow smoothly and feel very much alive. I also loved the creative enemy types and designs, which range from silly to flat out creepy. Looking at you, french fry. Seriously, what is up with those things? Those giant potatoes with eyes in the background are also going to haunt my dreams forever now. Thanks, Tom! With all of that said, a lot of factors, mainly gameplay changes, cause this to feel less and less like an actual Commander Keen title, as the loss of ray gun and pogo stick were quite huge. Now, that's not to say I disliked what I played, of course, just that the feeling I got while playing this was a very different one. Having to aim your projectile attacks was a little odd getting used to at first, but it added an interesting dynamic as you still had to run or jump past enemies before they reformed again. Climbing up and down poles was also a little frustrating, mainly due to some annoying enemies on top of you, and the slow climbing motion. I did like being able to duck for the first time, though. I also managed to breeze by this entry, finishing it in less than 2 hours, including every stage. Everything went by so fast it was hard to even take it all in. This is a very important part of Commander Keen's history, but it may not be for everyone. Whether or not I recommend you play this little side game is going to depend on a few things. If you're trying to look at this as anything beyond a prototype for future entries in the series, you may come out disappointed. Keep in mind, this game was made in less than a month. No, I'm serious, a month, while the game's developers were working on other projects simultaneously. It's a wonder we even got a product with this much quality, all things considered. I will, however, recommend this to people who are curious about the game's development cycle, as well as the use of features that would later become staples for the mainline episodes, such as the parallax scrolling, the ducking, and the much improved art style. Personally, I'm glad I got to play it, as I love learning more about the history behind my favorite games and series, but I fully understand that most people are not going to dig this, nor will they want to spend the $9.99 it's currently going for on Nintendo Switch's eShop. As nice of a port job as this is, it's hard to recommend at that price, especially when the first 5 episodes have gone on sale for much less on Steam. Heck, I think I got that collection for 90 cents at the time. Pfft. So those are my thoughts. Well-made game overall, with some nice improvements, and worth trying if you're curious or a completionist, but for everyone else, it's easily skippable. Keep in mind, though, that without this title, we wouldn't have the awesome 4th, 5th, and 6th episodes, which I'll be touching on in the next video. Just make sure to know what you're getting yourself into. In the meantime, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all again soon.